So today we want to talk a little bit about verbs. We've been talking about nouns lately, and it's time to say some things about verbs. But just as we did with nouns, we want to start off with some basic terminology. And our first basic term is conjugation. You may recall that with nouns, a declension is a group of nouns that form their cases the same way. With verbs, a conjugation simply means a group of verbs that form tenses the same way. So in your mind, you want to kind of coordinate or think together declension and conjugation. Declension is a group of nouns. Conjugation is a group of verbs. But we've got another term here that we need to address. What does tense mean? Well, tense, you may be thinking tense is how you feel before an exam. And that's true, but that's an emotion. When it comes to language, verb tense simply means the time of verb action. And if you think about it in English, we typically think about past, present, and future, three basic divisions of time. In Latin, we're going to have 6 tenses, and we'll get to them all this year. But right now, we're only going to focus on one tense. All right? In addition to tense, though, we've got 2 other terms, and one of them is person. Person simply indicates who does the verb action. Who's actually doing the verb action? And when we talk about person, we usually mean 3 things. First person, second person, and third person. Now in English, when we mean first person, that means either I or we. I'm doing something or we are doing something, that's first person. Second person means you are doing it. And we got a little defect there in English, and we'll talk about that later. But you can either mean you by yourself or you, all of you. And third person means he, she, it, or they. And there's one other term that we have to talk about with verbs, but you've already heard it before. Number. And just as with nouns, number with verbs simply means singular or plural. Okay? So what we want to talk about today is how to conjugate a verb out of first conjugation, the first group of verbs, in only one verb tense. All right? So we're going to erase this and continue on. If you'll notice, the new verbs we just had on page 27 all had 4 dictionary entries. Take, for example, porto. Porto, portare, portavi, portatus, to carry. You noticed all the verbs had those 4 parts. From now on, when you study vocabulary, you have to memorize all 4 dictionary entries of the verb and the definition. So what we want to talk about today is how to make the present tense. Well, first of all, what is present tense in English? Present tense in English is a tense that uses am, is, and are for helping words. So I am teaching, you are learning. That guy over there is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. Am, is, are is present tense. So what does that look like in Latin? Well, step number 1, you drop RE from the second dictionary entry. You notice all those verbs on page 27. The second part always had an RE on it. So portare, laborare, to work, spectare, to watch, amare, to love. They all had an RE. So you drop that off, and that gets you your stem. And then you add, we'll set up a singular and plural column, and we'll set up rows for first person, second person, and third person. Once you've dropped RE from the second dictionary entry, you simply add on certain endings. For first person singular, if I'm doing the action, you put on an O. Second person singular, if you by yourself are doing the action, put on an S. Third person singular, if he, she, or it is doing the action, put on a T. If first person plural, we are doing the action, you put on an MUS. If it's second person plural, all of you, we put on a TIS. And if it's third person plural, they are doing the action, we put on an NT. So right now on your own paper, following these rules, try to conjugate the verb porto in the present tense. Go ahead and hit pause on the video now and try that for yourself. All right, if you've done that, let's see how we did. First thing we would have done was to drop off the RE, and so that gives us porta as the stem. When I'm doing a drill like this or a practice, right, I like to write the stem down everywhere first. That way I know I've got it. So porta all the way through. And then I just want to put on the endings. So portao, portas, portant, portamus, portatus, portant. And if you followed the rules just as we gave them to you, you should have come up with something like this. And that's great because you only made one mistake. Now, you may be wondering how you could have made a mistake if you followed the rules. If you listen very carefully, one of those forms just somehow doesn't sound quite right. If you listen to portao, there's a little catch in the voice. And the Romans didn't really like that either. At one time, the verb was portao. But over time with the Romans, that sound just kind of slurred together. And it just became porto. Now you may be thinking, how in the world am I ever going to remember that? It's very easy. Notice that the first person singular form is the same as the first dictionary entry. Boom, there it is. Every time you can do that, you can take the first dictionary entry, and that is the first person singular, or the I am doing something form. Then all the others, we got exactly right. We dropped off the RE and added the endings. Now, if what we've been saying is true, see if you can come up with the English for each of those 6 words. Go ahead and hit pause on the video and see if you can come up with the English. All right, you should have come up with something like this. I carry, you carry, he, she, or it carries, we carry, you carry, and they carry. Well, let's see if you can do this on your own. I'm going to erase all this business here. We'll reset up the chart. And let's take a different verb from page 27. Maybe let's take this time, let's take specto. Specto, spectare, spectavi, spectantus, meaning to watch. Okay? We'll set up the singular and plural column. And this time I'd leave about 2 or 3 rows maybe. First person, skip a couple rows. Second person, skip a couple rows. Third person. This time see if you can conjugate that verb in both Latin and English on your own. Go ahead and hit pause on the video and try that now. All right, if you've done what we said, we took that first dictionary entry, boom, there's specto. And then for the other forms, we dropped off the RE from the second dictionary entry. We've got our stem, specta, all the way through. And now we just add on our endings. Second person singular, spectas. Third singular, spectant. First person plural, spectamus. Second person plural, spectantus. And third person plural, spectant. And for the English, we should have gotten I watch, you watch, he, she, it watches. We watch. You watch. They watch. And that takes us through present tense of first conjugation verbs.